Hey, second and third grade scientists. We are almost done with our experiments. Before I tell you what we're going to be doing today, I realize that I still have not thrown away my experiment. I just keep putting it back on top of the fridge after each week of checking on it, and then I forget about it for a while. So I just wanted to show you how crazy moldy my hot dog buns are now. I think if I were to show this experiment to someone who didn't know what these were originally, they would not guess that they were hot dog buns. They basically are just big, oval shaped balls of mold fluff now. I'm not still recording the data, I'm not still measuring the mold, but I just thought you might find it enjoyable to see how absolutely moldy these hot dog buns have gotten, because there are some crazy things happening. This one's getting super sticky and like dark colored mold. This one's really fluffy white mold. It's kind of crazy. The mold is taking over. Good thing the bags are sealed. Otherwise, the mold might take over the whole house. No, just kidding. Kind of. The spores could spread. Anyway, today in science, you are going to do the final step of your experiment before we get ready to share everything you've done and all the hard work you've put into it with the rest of the Perkins community, and especially the rest of the second and third grade science community. And I'll be telling you how to get those presentations ready starting tomorrow. But today, there's just one kind of final piece. It's called thinking more deeply about your experiment. And some of you might remember this step if you did science fair last year. So third graders, this might seem kind of familiar. But scientists never just take their results and say, aha, I'm done. These must be true. They analyze their experiment. They think about what else might have accidentally happened during the course of their experiment that could have changed their results a little bit by accident. And they're honest about that. They don't need to be embarrassed. They don't need to feel ashamed if they maybe made a mistake when they were setting up their experiment or when they were measuring their experiment. They need to be honest about that, because other scientists will learn from you telling those types of mistakes and those types of other accidental things that happened. And those other scientists can look at your experiment and say, oh, so if maybe this accident happened, I wonder if we could do this other experiment to test if that accident truly made that result. So it's never anything to be ashamed of to have things accidentally affect your results. It's what scientists always are very honest about, and other scientists take that as an exciting inspiration and an exciting chance to follow up with more tests to see what really did affect your results. So the first question of today in the Thinking More Deeply is going to say, what might have accidentally affected your results? You all changed one thing on purpose. That was your independent variable. For me, the one thing I changed on purpose was how much sugar, high sugar, medium sugar, low sugar, or no sugar, that I put on my hot dog buns. So you all had one thing you changed on purpose too, your independent variable. And so it's probably safe to say that the different amounts of sugar made some change in the amounts of mold, but what else could have accidentally affected how much mold was on my hot dog buns? Do you guys have any ideas? Think some in your head before I say what my ideas are. What else could have maybe changed how much mold was on my hot dog buns besides how much sugar I purposely put on them? Well, hopefully you have some good ideas too. A few of my ideas are where the hot dog bun was taped on the tray, because I realized when I set this up on the top of my fridge, some of the tray was closer to the edge of the fridge, and underneath the fridge, like right to the side of it, is the heater for the kitchen. So I realized that if I set the tray like this on top of my fridge, and the hot dog buns that were on this side of the tray were closer to the heater vent blowing hot air up, that might have changed. These might have been a slightly different temperature, even though I tried to put them in a place that was going to be all the same temperature. Accidentally, a couple might have been a little bit warmer and a little bit cooler on the other side. So that's one thing I could write, is that maybe by accident, because some of them were closer to the heater, they were different temperatures. So the different temperatures might have affected my mold results. Another thing that might have affected it is how much water I sprayed. You guys saw me set up my experiment. You saw me try to spray the same amount of water on every hot dog bun because I tried to have the amount of water be the controlled variable. But when you guys spray a spray bottle, do you notice that the exact same amount of water always comes out? Or does sometimes it have like a stronger spray and sometimes it's a little bit lighter? Sometimes maybe you squeeze it a little bit extra hard and more comes out or less comes out. Yeah, so spray bottles are not perfectly designed, and me using the spray bottle is not going to be perfect. I might pull harder or softer sometimes when I'm pulling a little spray bottle trigger. So they might have accidentally gotten more or less moisture than each other. So all these things that I'm brainstorming right now are things that might have affected my results. And I don't know for sure if they did, but I need to be honest about them as a scientist, announcing my experiment to other scientists and to the rest of the world, so that other scientists and other people can think about and maybe follow up and test later if those other variables change the amount of mold, if changing the amount of moisture or the amount of temperature, and kind of factoring those in. Or it also helps me and other scientists who might want to do the same experiment again to double, triple check my results. It will help us try to control those other variables better. So if I were to do this experiment again, I would probably try to find a different place to put my hot dog buns that was not so close to the radiator, to the heater vent by my fridge, because I analyzed what happened this time and I thought, oh, that might have changed my results by accident. I better fix that for next time. Or maybe it would make me buy a better spray bottle or be more aware of how much I'm pulling on the spray bottle trigger when I'm spraying it. So analyzing the accidents that could have maybe changed your results makes you a better scientist for designing either this experiment again or a new experiment in the future for how to control all the other parts. And it also helps other scientists be aware of where your results could have come from, what could have changed them, and maybe do their own follow-up tests too. So that's the first thing you're going to do. And it looks like this on your sheet. You can see at the top of this page, it says thinking more deeply about my experiment, because that's kind of the section we're doing today. And then right under that, what could have accidentally affected my results? So this is the section where you just think about and write about anything that might have affected your results by accident, either that you did or that were just in the area, in your house, in your yard, wherever your experiment was. Just throw out as many ideas as you can for things that might have accidentally affected your results. And that will really show that you're a deep thinking scientist, analyzing your experiment and thinking about what could be done better next time or by other scientists. And then you can see that right under that is the next question we're going to be thinking about. What bonus discoveries did I make? What else did I learn from doing this experiment? So you all hopefully learned your conclusion of what your independent variable did to the growth of your mold or your plants. But does science stop there? Do you just make one discovery and say, oh, I'm done, all experiments over? No way. There's so many discoveries and so many things to learn from every single experiment you do. So the more you think about that at the end of your experiment and throughout doing your experiment, the better scientist you will become, because you'll be learning more and more and more and just filling your head with all sorts of science observations and discoveries. So when you were filling out your data chart, remember that section that was underneath the measurement where it said other observations? Go look at that again, and that should hopefully show you some other discoveries that you made. For instance, you measured how much mold or how much plant growth was on your experiment, but was there different types of mold? Or were there different types of plant growth? Like some of the plants had bigger leaves or taller or like skinnier stems, or like were they different shapes, different colors? What other kinds of discoveries did you make about the mold growth or plant growth, either different for different variables or just in general? Like if you planted pea seeds, did you learn some new discoveries about how peas grow, even if it was the same for each pot? Did you learn that peas start with kind of a little curled up leaf and then they stretch out their stem? Did you learn when you tried to grow mold on Jell-O that it starts by being polka dotted and then it spreads out more of a solid like rug of mold? You know, so kind of generally, what did you learn about growing mold and plants in your experiment? What other bonus discoveries made you a smarter mold or plant scientist? And then, did you discover anything else about doing experiments, especially this kind of experiment? Did you learn that it's hard to measure mold because, you know, holding that little the graph sheet was tricky in one place and counting up all the squares? Did you learn that it's tricky to measure plants if they start to die, because instead of being nice and upright, they get kind of withered and fall over? Did you learn that sometimes when you plant seeds, they don't sprout at all, even if you've tried to give them the best little habitat to grow in? So what other types of things did you learn about setting up experiments for plants and mold, and generally running an experiment? You were the lead scientist. You might have gotten some help from other family members, but you were the one who did most of these steps. And so what did you learn that you could think about and write about now that'll help you become a better scientist for setting up another experiment in the future too? So things like, I learned that I need to measure out my variables before I put them on the counter, or I need to remember to label my bags because I got them mixed up, or other things like that. So in the section that has the question that says, what bonus discoveries did I make and what else did I learn from doing this experiment, you can have 3 different types of things here. You can say what other types of discoveries you made about mold or plants. And you could also have other things you learned about growing plants and mold in general, like peas growing or lettuce growing or mold growing. And you can also have other things you learned about being a scientist and running an experiment. What's extra important to think about for next time and learn from this time to do better next time? So that's this section. Any bonus discoveries you made and what else you learned. And then the last section, for thinking more deeply, says, who would my results help? And this is one that's going to be probably a little tricky because, you know, generally a lot of people don't randomly just put sugar on their hot dog buns. So it's not like I'm helping this big group of people that like to put sugar on their hot dog buns. I mean, maybe some people do, but think a little bit more critically. Think about what types of applications your results could have on the community, because scientists do like to try to apply their results to figure out what it could be helpful for in the wider world. So beyond my kitchen, what could my results, my conclusion about how much sugar affects the amount of mold growth on hot dog buns, who would that help beyond me being curious about it? Would it help bakers, maybe? People who bake hot dog buns and other types of bread? Because maybe knowing how much sugar they should put in it to affect how much mold might grow might help them plan their ingredients and their recipes. I sprinkle the sugar on the outside, but maybe this experiment could also teach them what sugar inside of the recipe could do to the mold. Maybe my results could help someone who was thinking about inventing a new type of ketchup, and ketchup has a little sugar in it, and so maybe that would affect, the ketchup on my hot dog bun when I was making a hot dog. And maybe that would kind of affect if I, left my hot dog with the ketchup on it for a while in the fridge because I had some leftovers. Maybe that would affect how much mold grew on it if there was different amounts of sugar in the ketchup that I put in the fridge for leftovers on the hot dog bun. I don't know. You can see I'm just kind of brainstorming right here because that's what you need to do for this part. It's going to be a little bit of kind of a far reach. Like there might not be a clear person or a clear community your results would help, but think about some possibilities. Who might care to learn about your experiment because of what they do in their life, either for their job or just hanging out because like they make hot dogs and they use hot dog buns. So that's going to be the very last section on that page, is just who would my results help? Who might care? Why might they help them? And it's okay if you're not sure if it would help them or not, if it's just maybe a guess. So that's that last section. So those are the final steps for doing your experiment and thinking like a scientist. And then tomorrow I will show you what we're going to do to kind of share our results and share all the hard work we've put into these experiments with the rest of the second and third grade community, because we can't just go to school and have science fair, unfortunately. But I know how much hard work you guys have put into these experiments, and you've blown me away by sharing them with me. And I would really love you to get the chance to share with other scientists in the second and third grade and maybe other families as well. So I will let you know tomorrow how we will be doing that. But for today, print out the Thinking More Deeply page and think more deeply about your experiments. And then send it to me so I can see what you've been thinking about. Have fun. Bye, scientists. I miss you.